Welcome to the Mindcut series. Today we're diving deep into the science of human connection and communication.
Yeah, we're drawing from a really insightful conversation with Vanessa Van Edwards. She calls herself a recovering awkward person, which is kind of relatable, I think.
Totally. And she's helped so many people figure out how we interact. You mentioned wanting to quickly get knowledge you can actually use, right?
Exactly, practical stuff.
Well, that's precisely what we're going to unpack here today.
Right, because understanding this, it's not just about being more popular or something. It impacts your relationships, your career.
Even how long you live, apparently.
Yeah, even longevity.
Yeah.
So we're focusing on those actionable strategies from her work, things you can, try out immediately.
Okay, great. So overview. We'll look at charisma. Is it born or made? Different types of awkwardness.
Uh-huh.
And surprisingly, what actually makes friendship strong? Core values.
Right. The mission is really to pull out concrete tactics you can use to improve your interactions, like starting today.
And we'll make sure it's practical, not just theory, but how you apply it. Specific examples, actual steps.
Exactly.
Okay, let's kick off with something basic but huge. First impressions. They stick, don't they?
Oh, massively. The research suggests they're, about 76% accurate for spotting things like extroversion, agreeableness.
Openness, conscientiousness, too. But interestingly, neuroticism, like how worried someone is, that's harder to spot right away.
Yeah, that one's trickier. But still, 76% accuracy on those other core traits, just from an initial impression, that's pretty significant.
What makes that accuracy so, striking?
It's how fast we process all these subtle signals, isn't it? In just moments, we're making these quite reliable judgments. It just hammers home the power of nonverbal communication, all those silent cues we're sending and receiving, constantly.
Right. And it explains why making a good first impression is such an advantage, professionally, personally.
Yeah, definitely. And Vanessa points out a big mistake people make is just not leveraging that moment, not making it count.
So how do we make it count? She talks about this thermostat idea, trust and competence.
Yeah, think of it like dials you can adjust. You send out subtle signals to dial up trust or dial up competence, depending on the situation.
Okay, give me an example, like in photos.
Right. So a slight head tilt, that can signal warmth, engagement, makes you seem more approachable. Whereas maybe holding your chin in your hand, which might feel thoughtful, could sometimes read as less competent than a more neutral, open posture.
Wow, tiny things. She also talks about smiles, right? The genuine ones.
The Duchenne smile, yeah. The one that reaches your eyes, crinkles the corners. That's key for likability. Fake smiles don't usually activate those muscles around the eyes.
And eye contact, close.
Yeah.
It all plays into this balance of warmth versus competence.
It does. For women, apparently, wearing glasses in a photo can give a slight competence boost. It's fascinating.
So maybe like a warm smile plus glasses could be a good combo.
Could be. Or maybe glasses and a watch. It's about finding that balance for the impression you want to make. The key is being intentional about it,
Yeah, thinking about it consciously.
Yeah.
Especially for online profiles or that first meeting.
Exactly. Adjust those elements.
Okay, here's a weird one she mentioned. Sunglasses in photos.
Ah, yeah. The potential barrier to connection.
She suggests they can actually hinder connection because blocking the eyes might prevent the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone.
That's the idea. Even through a photo, seeing eyes might trigger a tiny bit of that bonding chemical. So block the eyes, and you potentially block that subtle connection pathway.
Makes you think about your profile pics, doesn't it?
It really does. How often are we wearing shades in those important first impression photos? Could it be making us seem less approachable without us realizing?
Food for thought. Okay, so moving to face-to-face. You're in a meeting, maybe networking. How do you consciously signal warmth and competence then?
Okay, fundamental stuff. Angle your body towards the person. Shows respect, engagement, simple but powerful. Then eye contact. Aim for maybe 60% during the chat. Not staring, but connecting.
And she mentioned holding it a bit longer at the end of a point.
Exactly. To sort of seal it, emphasize its importance. And open gestures showing your palms, for instance, that signals honesty, approachability.
These are all things we can actually do. Small adjustments, big impact potential.
Totally. They influence how people perceive your warmth and competence in real time.
Okay, good first impression made. Now the conversation starts. And we hit the classic awkward hurdle. How are you?
Yeah. the potential conversation killer.
So what are better ways to break the ice, according to Vanessa?
She's all about breaking the script. Don't just go with the default. Try something slightly different, like what's good or working on anything exciting lately.
Or what have you been looking forward to? That one's nice. It prompts a more specific, usually positive answer.
Right. Or you could answer the how are you differently, like give a number. I'm about an 8 out of 10 today.
Or share a tiny, relatable struggle. Trying to survive the email avalanche, but otherwise good. How about you?
Exactly. It makes the start more memorable. Creates an actual opening for, a real conversation, not just the back and forth script.
Injecting personality right from the start.
Yeah. It invites the other person to actually engage. Think about your go-to openers. Could you swap in a script breaker? Make that initial moment more engaging for them.
Good challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, she then gets into this idea of a chemical cocktail that great communicators give off.
Yeah, this is a cool framework. Dopamine, testosterone, serotonin.
Dopamine for excitement, motivation.
Right. Testosterone related to feeling capable, smart.
And serotonin for calm, belonging. How do we actually make people feel these things?
Okay, so dopamine. Introduce novelty, ask engaging questions, share something exciting, make them think. Serotonin, those Me Too moments. Finding common ground. That releases serotonin, builds connection.
Like her thread theory.
Yeah.
Shared experiences create liking.
Exactly. It's biological. And simply assuring someone, hey, great to see you, or so glad you could make it, that boosts serotonin too. Makes them feel seen, valued.
And acknowledging their skills or contributions, that taps into the competence feeling.
Yeah, that links to the testosterone aspect, feeling capable, smart, recognizing their expertise.
So finding common ground, the Me Too, is chemically rewarding.
It really is. It's not just pleasant, it's building a chemical bond. So actively listen for those threads, highlight them, it deepens things.
And that simple assurance, good to see you. It sounds basic, but
it directly signals acceptance. It hits that serotonin button. In our busy world, these little affirmations make a huge difference in how people feel around us.
Okay, switching gears slightly. Being the red apple. I like this one.
Yeah. Standing out, but in a good way.
In a sea of green apples, be the red one. Makes you more memorable, right? Business, personal life. How do we figure out our red apple?
It's about knowing what makes you unique, but still fits, Not being totally weird, but highlighting something distinctive. A different perspective, a unique skill. Maybe just a memorable way you talk about things.
So identifying what subtly sets you apart and makes you interesting.
Yeah, lean into that a little.
This kind of leads to her story toolbox idea.
Right. Having stuff ready for those common conversation starters, weather, traffic, where you're from.
Instead of just, traffic was bad, have a little anecdote, a weird fact, something related.
Exactly. It elevates the small talk, makes it more engaging, leaves a better impression. It's about being prepared to pivot from the boring to something a bit more interesting. Offer more than just the surface stuff.
Got it. And this applies online, too, with Zoom backgrounds.
Oh, yeah. An authentic background like your bookshelf with interesting titles is way better than blurred or fake ones.
No way.
Because they're gifts of conversation, as she calls them. They give people little hooks, things to ask about. It shows personality, fosters a bit more connection, even through a screen.
Makes sense. And for video calls themselves, the 50-50 eye contact rule.
Yeah, 50% looking at the person on screen, 50% looking at the camera lens.
To simulate direct eye contact for them.
Right. It helps create that feeling of connection, which can be tricky on video, a practical tip for navigating that digital space.
Okay, let's talk dating for a moment.
Yeah.
She shared some pretty revealing stuff from coaching clients.
Like how often people hide their feelings, even when they're really attracted to someone.
Yeah. It really drives home that you have to show your interest, not just feel it.
It highlights that disconnect, doesn't it, between what's going on inside and what you're actually projecting. You might feel a spark, but if your actions or words don't show it...
the other person might never know. Missed opportunity.
Exactly. Got to be clear, got to be affirmative if you want things to progress.
And to make conversations deeper, not just on dates, but anywhere you want real connection. Move past the surface questions.
Right. Instead of just, where in the city are you from? Ask something like...
what's your favorite hidden gem there? Or what do you love most about it? Or any underrated spots?
Yeah. Questions that get to values, passions, not just facts. They invite the person to share something more meaningful about themselves. That's how you build real understanding.
And definitely avoid dream killing.
Oh, yeah. The conversation stopper. Someone shares an idea or interest, and you just shut it down with, don't do that.
So instead, offer an alternative or a playful twist.
Exactly. Acknowledge what they said, but maybe pivot slightly. Oh, interesting. I haven't tried that, but I do love related thing, or something like that. Keep the door open, keep it positive.
She also mentioned giving micro wins. What's that about?
It's like letting someone guess something right about you, maybe your age or where you're from. Small moments where they feel correct or insightful.
Why do that?
It taps into that validation need we all have, creates little positive feelings, makes them feel good in the interaction, encourages them to engage more. Small affirmations.
Subtle, but makes sense. Okay, body language of attraction. She mentioned things like touching hair, lips, face.
Yeah, those self-touching cues can often indicate interest or nervousness associated with attraction. Unconscious signals.
And conversely, closed-off posture, arms crossed, turned away, usually signals the opposite, right? Lack of interest, maybe discomfort.
Generally, yes. Being aware of these cues in yourself and others gives you more insight into the dynamics at play. How are things actually landing?
And language matters too, using positive words.
Hugely. Words like love, excitement, great, good. Using them can actually help create those feelings in the conversation. It primes the interactions.
It's like calling a meeting a collaboration meeting instead of just a meeting.
Exactly. It frames it positively. It can subtly influence the whole tone and maybe even the outcome. Language shapes perception.
She also drew a link between closed body language and vocal fry, that creaky voice thing.
Yeah, she suggested that sometimes, when paired with closed posture, vocal fry might signal low engagement or disinterest.
Interesting connection between the physical and the vocal.
It shows how interconnected it all is, right? Your posture, your mood, it can subtly come out in your voice.
Okay, shifting to a modern problem, being too busy.
Ah, yes. The epidemic of dizziness.
Vanessa's point was that sometimes we prioritize our own routines, even self-care routines, over actually connecting with people.
And that prioritizing can backfire, right? It can lead to missed opportunities for happiness, for support, and impact long-term health.
So self-care is vital, obviously, but not if it completely isolates you.
Exactly. Finding that balance is key. Those meaningful connections are fundamental for well-being, resilience, everything.
She also talked about dating checklists, having super rigid criteria for a partner.
Yeah, how that can blind you. You might miss a great connection because they don't tick every single box on your list.
Leads to more transactional interactions, maybe? Less about genuine connection.
Potentially, yeah. It's a reminder to stay open, you know. Don't let a checklist overshadow real chemistry or compatibility.
And with so much online dating, seeing all these polished, perfect-seeming profiles, can that make us numb?
That's her suggestion. A potential numbness where we become harder to impress, less able to appreciate genuine, maybe imperfect qualities in real people.
Because we're so used to the curated version online.
Right. Desensitization. It highlights why being truly present and engaged in real-world interactions is so important to counteract that potential fatigue.
If someone's feeling burnt out, maybe lonely, she had a couple of challenges.
The no mirror challenge and the social media blackout.
Yeah. What are the supposed benefits?
It's about shifting focus away from external validation, superficial comparisons, and towards internal self-acceptance and real-world stuff. Recalibrating priorities, boosting self-esteem, maybe encouraging more genuine social time.
It makes you think about the control social media gives us, doesn't it? Compared to messy, unpredictable real-life conversations.
Totally. Online, you curate, you control. Real life is, well, real, more spontaneous, requires more navigating. But maybe that's where the real connection happens.
For people who hate networking events, she had a tip.
Go with a purpose, a specific goal. Like,
Wow.
I'm going to talk to 3 people in marketing, or I want to practice my opening lines, or I need to gather info on X for a project.
Makes it less about just aimless mingling.
Exactly. Turns it from an anxiety source into a focused mission. More manageable, maybe even rewarding.
Okay, let's talk leadership and professional communication.
Yeah.
That introduction framework she suggested.
The I'm a who helps whom do what. Yeah, that's good.
Better than just, I'm a marketing manager.
Way better. It forces you to articulate your value, your impact. I'm a strategist who helps small businesses increase their online visibility. It's informative, invites follow-up questions, it tells a story.
And giving people hooks in conversation, especially as a leader.
Yeah, don't just state facts. Add a little detail, an anecdote, maybe even a touch of vulnerability. Make it easy for people to ask you more.
So not just our sales were up 10%.
Right, maybe. Our sales were up 10%, which was amazing, especially considering the challenges we faced in Q2 with the supply chain. We actually tried a new approach to hooks.
Makes you more approachable? facilitates actual dialogue.
Exactly. Shows you're inviting engagement, not just broadcasting.
And disagreeing gracefully.
The yes and approach, or offering an alternative perspective instead of a flat no or you're wrong.
It keeps the conversation flowing, shows respect even when you differ.
Right. It's about productive exchange, not shutting things down.
For leaders, using the word because, explaining the why.
Crucial for buy-in. We're shifting focus because market trends show X. It provides context, builds understanding, fosters trust, transparency.
Okay, this next one was really interesting to me, withholding liking.
Yeah, how we often don't tell people the positive things we think or feel about them.
And she argues this contributes significantly to loneliness in friendships, romance.
It does seem plausible, doesn't it? We assume people know or we feel awkward saying it. But verbally affirming good qualities you see in someone, that's powerful.
I really admire how you handled that situation, or you have a great sense of humor, things like that.
Exactly. It might feel vulnerable, but it strengthens bonds, creates positivity. We probably don't do it enough.
If humor isn't your thing, though, you can still be great socially.
By being the best passenger, enthusiastic listener, genuine laugher.
Appreciating other people's humor.
Yeah. Active, appreciative listening is huge. You don't need to be the comedian to add value and connection. Just engaging genuinely is powerful.
But if you do want to be funnier, she had tips.
Improv classes, yeah. Studying funny people, having a few go-to jokes.
And the rule of 3, 2 similar things, then a surprising third one.
Right. Setup, punchline, twist. It's a classic structure. Humor can be learned, cultivated. These are concrete ways to practice.
What about touch, like a high five?
Can be a cue of interest, connection, but handle with care, obviously. Be mindful of culture, context, personal boundaries. Authenticity is key. It has to feel natural, not forced.
She even suggested kind of borrowing humor styles.
Observing people you find funny, especially if they have a similar vibe to you, and seeing what elements you could adapt. Not copying, but learning, drawing inspiration.
Expands your own range.
Potentially, yeah. And remember the link between laughter and learning.
Right. Humor opens the brain, makes things stick.
Exactly. It enhances engagement, retention, useful in lots of contexts.
Okay, let's get into some deeper nonverbal stuff. Synchrony.
That unconscious mirroring. When people feel connected, they often start subtly matching each other's posture, gestures, maybe even blinking rhythm.
Wild. We don't even realize we're doing it.
Often not. It's a powerful subconscious signal of rapport, shared understanding.
And then micro expressions, those super fast facial flashes.
Yeah, fleeting but revealing. Fear you might see the upper whites of the eyes briefly. Discuss nose wrinkle, maybe upper lip raise.
Anger. Tight lips, lowered brows.
Often, yes. And contempt, that one-sided smirk or lip raise, that's a particularly negative one in relationships.
Learning to spot these gives you insight into real feelings, even if someone's trying to hide them.
Absolutely. It's crucial to distinguish surprise, raised brows, open mouth, from fear, though. And even little nods, especially with kids, can be revealing.
So if you do spot a negative microexpression, what then?
Don't necessarily call it out directly, unless appropriate, but maybe offer empathy. Everything okay? Or just give them some space. Acknowledge it internally and adjust. Don't just barrel ahead.
Show you're attuned.
Right. And to help someone process anger or fear, she suggested gently naming a possible emotion like, you seem a bit upset.
Why does that help?
It can help them identify and acknowledge what they're actually feeling. Breaks through defensiveness sometimes. Naming it is often the first step to dealing with it.
Okay, and spotting fake smiles. We touched on this. Eyes are key.
Yeah, no crinkle around the eyes usually means it's not a genuine Duchenne smile. Important in sales, rapport building, everywhere, really.
And that connection to Botox, potentially dampening emotional expression and feeling.
It's that feedback loop idea. Expressing an emotion can reinforce feeling it, and vice versa. Limiting expression might subtly affect the experience. Interesting research there.
In contempt, that one-sided smirk, a real relationship killer.
Yeah, signals deep disrespect. Reversing it requires actively building positive shared experiences, rebuilding that emotional bank account.
Which brings us to personality itself. Can we change it? Should we?
Okay, the big 5 traits. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, ocean. Right. There's a big genetic chunk, like 40-60% heritable, roughly. But that leaves a decent portion, maybe 30-40%, that can be influenced by effort, environment, experiences.
So you can't totally flip your core personality, but you can adjust the dials.
Exactly. You can consciously work on behaving in more extroverted ways if needed, or developing more conscientious habits. It takes effort, but change is possible to a degree.
Let's quickly define them again. Openness.
Curiosity, liking new ideas, experiences. High openness, try the weird thing on the menu. Low openness, stick to your usual.
Conscientiousness.
Organized, responsible, goal-driven. High, always on time, planner user. Low, more spontaneous, maybe struggles with deadlines.
Extroversion.
Outgoing, sociable, energized by people. Introversion is energized by solitude.
Agreeableness.
Cooperative, empathetic, trusting. High, people-pleaser potential. Low, more skeptical, critical.
And neuroticism.
Tendency towards negative emotions, worry, anxiety, stress sensitivity, linked to serotonin levels.
Understanding these helps make sense of people's behavior. Really.
Totally. And how different combinations might work or clash in relationships.
She even suggested having partners or friends take a personality test.
Yeah, as a tool for understanding, not judgment. Like if one partner is super high openness and the other very low, you know you'll need to navigate different desires for novelty versus routine. Same with extroversion levels.
Knowing that upfront could help with communication and compromise.
Exactly. Appreciating the differences.
She also touched on neurodiversity and personality trends, an evolving area.
Right. Recognizing that standard models might not capture the full picture for everyone. Important ongoing work.
And the finding that high extroverts are often seen as the best leaders.
Yeah, perceived leadership often correlates with those outgoing, assertive traits. But effective leadership comes in all personality styles, of course. That's just a perception trend.
Agreeableness, the pros and cons. High agreeableness can lead to overcommitment, being a doormat.
Potentially, yeah. Difficulty saying no. Low agreeableness, while maybe good for critical thinking, can come across as harsh, skeptical, that dream-killing tendency again. Finding the balance is key.
Neuroticism, the worry factor. Understanding the biological basis helps.
Right. It's not just someone choosing to worry. High and low neuroticism folks literally experience and react to negative events differently. Recognizing that can build empathy in relationships.
Okay, identifying narcissistic traits. Not from a test score, but behaviors.
Yeah, like how they talk about themselves. Claiming perfection, never wrong, never made a mistake, big lack of willingness to compromise. Those patterns are more telling than a score.
Got it. Personality and longevity.
High conscientiousness, likely better health habits. And high extroversion, stronger social support networks, both linked to living longer.
Interesting. And the potential challenge for lifelong singles, low in openness, extroversion, and conscientiousness.
Yeah, that trifecta might make initiating and maintaining connections harder. But strategies exist. For low extroverts, connecting via shared activities rather than just open-ended socializing can be really effective. Book clubs, hiking groups, volunteering.
Focus on the shared interests.
Exactly. Takes the pressure off pure small talk.
It's amazing how accurate our first instincts about personality can be, even from a handshake.
Our social brains are powerful pattern detectors. We pick up so many subtle cues unconsciously.
So trust your gut, that vibe you get.
Vanessa strongly advocates for that. That initial feeling often reflects real chemical, physical cues you're picking up. Don't ignore it. Curate your energy. Don't force yourself into situations or connections that feel fundamentally off.
Trust the vibe.
Yeah. It's often subconscious wisdom.
And her final point, the deeper purpose behind all this.
It comes back to serving others. Using these skills not just for self-gain, but to connect better, understand better, support others more effectively.
Right. That's the ultimate goal.
Okay.
Let's wrap up with some key takeaways for everyone listening.
You've got a lot now, right? The science of connection, the power of nonverbals, that first impression thermostat.
Breaking the script, the chemical cocktail, thread theory being the red apple. Lots of concepts.
Microexpressions, personality traits.
So the practical side. Start noticing your own signals. Try those different conversation starters. Think about your online presence, those background cues.
And consciously practice expressing appreciation. Tell people the good stuff you notice. Be intentional about deepening connections. Experiment with this stuff.
Okay, final provocative thought for you to mull over. Think about the balance in your own life right now. Busyness versus connection.
Are tasks accidentally winning out over people? What might be the long-term impact on your health, your happiness?
Maybe this deep dive sparks a little reevaluation. A nudge to actively cultivate those relationships that really feed your soul. Something to think about.